Well, welcome. I'm Mashim Murchison, and I'm glad that you chose us for your last session of the conference. I am a counselor at Eastlake Middle School down in the Chula Vista area, and I'm a mom of three, and so I have three students in the home doing distance learning, one who's in second grade at elementary school, one at one high school, Eastlake High School, in her freshman year, and then a senior at High Tech High. So in terms of the whole pandemic and distance learning, I have it as a school employee, as a counselor, but also as a parent. And that's kind of what inspired me to do this work about connecting students with their peers. And that's really what motivated me to start my club. And go ahead and I'll turn it over to Sherry.
Hi, my name is Sherry Santana. I'm a counselor at Hilltop Middle School. And I have two girls. I do not have to deal with what Mashim and other moms and dads out there are dealing with. My girls, I have a senior at San Diego State, and my oldest daughter will be starting her master's degree March 1st at the University of Auckland. Unfortunately, she won't get to go there quite yet because of the pandemic, but she's getting started online. Part of the reason I got involved in creating these kind of groups online was because we were just seeing a real disconnect with our kids. So that was my reason for starting these groups.
And hi, everybody. My name is Andrea Revilla Bojorquez. I'm actually a counseling intern. I interned at Southwest High for a whole year, and then I'm currently at Eastlake Middle School right now. I don't have any children, but I am a student as well, so I definitely understand the student perspective of being online and the counselor perspective of being online. The reason I started my group was because I realized that there was a huge need for our students to have some time to really just be able to talk and express some of the anxieties and stress and all the social emotional things that they were dealing with.
Great, so to start off, we'd like to do a little icebreaker. One, because we just want to show you some of the things that we do with our groups, and give you some examples throughout the way, so you have some tools if you want to take back to your groups that are already existing or the ones that you're thinking about creating. So I'm gonna stop sharing my screen for a second. And for just a minute, I'm going to ask you all to turn off your cameras. And you may have done this before. I just call it camera on, camera off, because I really don't know what it's called. But so pretty easy. It looks like most cameras are off right now. But I'm gonna ask a couple of questions and ask you to turn your camera on if they apply to you. So camera on if your birthday is in February. No February birthdays. All right then. Okay. Camera on if you work at a high school. All right. A couple of high school folks. Welcome. Thank you. Okay. You can turn your cameras off. Camera on if you work at a middle school. All right, looks about a little bit more middle school folks. So all right, woohoo. Okay, and then camera off. Now, any elementary folks out there? Okay, fair share of elementary. Hi, Adrian. And camera off. Now, anybody at camera on if you're from outside of those groups? Liliana, hello. And Liliana, would you like to say where you're joining us from?
Hi everyone, Liliana Silva Diaz. I am a COSA in the Sweetwater Union High School District.
Awesome. Yes, we're very lucky to have a COSA, a counselor on special assignment who provides so much support to us in our Sweetwater district. All right, now camera on if you're 100% distance learning. Okay, it looks like a little more than half of us are still 100% distance learning, or maybe more. Anybody? Okay, camera off. Camera on if you are in person or some form of hybrid at your school. Okay, a few people, a handful. So we can try to address that too. And camera off. Camera on if you're somewhat comfortable with the distance learning platforms like Microsoft Teams, Google Meet, Zoom. All right, most of us, it looks like, and at this point, I think we're forced into being somewhat comfortable. All right, and camera off. Last question. Camera on if you're ready to share some ideas and bring some fun and connection to distance learning. Yay. All right. So, oops. Someone is sharing their screen, it looks like. All right, thank you. So this is a great activity just to get, because we know with our students, they don't want to turn their cameras on. And so this is just a great activity to get to see people's faces. I've done this with my club, and I did it at the holidays, and we had a special holiday club meeting, and the students liked it. And it was fun to see their faces because a lot of them I have not seen their faces. And I always encourage the last one to be one that most of them will turn their cameras on, because then they might leave them on. I don't mind if you leave yours on or off today. That's totally up to you. But let me get back to our screen sharing. All right, so today we're going to talk about why start a virtual club or group, or for those of you who are hybrid, maybe this is something that you could still continue virtually, because I know getting together in groups at school might be difficult. How to start a club or a group. And then the three of us are going to share an example of what we're doing or what we have done. Some tips for a successful virtual meeting. And then at the end, we're hoping we can all just share some ideas of games, activities that we have done, so that we can kind of just build up our toolbox of activities we can do with our kids. All right. And I hope everybody can see this screen okay. I'm going to hide the faces. There we go. Okay, so why start a virtual club or support group? So for me, like I said earlier, it was personal. I know my kids were feeling disconnected, and we're a very active family. We like to take our kids to the beach. We've made a decision to do a COVID pod with one other family, and we just stick to our two families. But not everybody has that. And so we know that 29% of parents say their child is experiencing harm to their emotional or mental health due to the school closures. So, and I'm sure many of you have heard in the state of Nevada how they've had a really high increase of suicides. And of course, that is the worst case scenario due to the pandemic. And so finding ways to connect students who are disconnected and don't have maybe a peer support group or a family support group, this really helps to bring them together and just be connected. And then I found that at least with my group, we don't do homework. It's just fun. It's called Fun and Games Club. And so they don't have to worry about homework and grades. And it's just somewhere where they can just relax. And then I've noticed that when we have 504s, IEP meetings, or just parent meetings, that this is a great place to say, hey, we're offering this to your children. So it gives the parents they know that we're there for them. And that's actually how a lot of our students have joined the clubs. And then, as we learned yesterday in our keynote, our job as counselors is to be world-class dopamine slingers. So having fun, connecting, talking, it just helps people to lighten up, put a smile on their face. So anything you would like to add, Sherry or Andrea?
I was going to 100% agree. And I think everybody here right now, we know how disconnected our kids feel. And you've probably experienced the same thing with me, where I've had students reach out, and in the end, we just talk. I mean, after, I kind of figure out where they're at, they just want to talk to somebody outside of their house. And I feel like a lot of kids have lost that connection with even their friends, whereas maybe at the beginning of the pandemic, the texting and everything was going on. But what we were finding at Hilltop Middle was that our kids were even kind of disconnecting from their friends in the normal ways that they connect. So that's why we initially decided to just groups that aren't academic, that are just ways for kids to hang out and do what they would hopefully do if we were on campus at lunch and during nutrition break.
Great, thank you. So how to start a group or a club, and I'll talk from my perspective, and then we'll each add a little bit. First of all, is determining whether the groups will be held virtually or in person. At our school, in our district, we do have the option of doing some small cohorts after school or during the school day. So we do have the option to bring the students to school in our district. But personally, I chose one. I'm in a COVID pod, and they're very strict. Our managers of our pod will not let anybody else, and we're not allowed to do much. So going in person was not an option for me, but also for my students, I wanted it to be very open to anybody. And I felt if we went in person at school, that it would limit the students who, one, didn't have transportation, or parents who were concerned about sending their kids to school. So for us, it was a very easy decision for me to stay virtual. The next thing we did at our school is we surveyed the students about their interests, because it wasn't just me starting a club. There were some other counselors and staff members. So we have an art club. We have a Purple Pride, which is an LGBTQ club and supporters. And we also have a Impact 7-8, which is like a Bible study club, which is in partnership with a local church and one of our counselors. But we also wanted to survey the students to see about their interests, and we'll go over that survey in just a minute. Next, reaching out to school staff and solicit support of volunteers to help facilitate groups. So at my school, we sent an email to all of our staff to see if anybody was interested, and that's how we found out there were already some groups going on our campus, some clubs, and I was able to get some support for my club. I really like having a partner, because we've tried different things like breakout groups, and it helps to have someone else there. And Andrea, our co-facilitator today, is also a co-facilitator for the Fun and Games Club. Reaching out to school administration, because there might be funding available through CARES Act. Currently, I haven't spent much money. I've used a couple of postage stamps, so I'd say no more than like $20 that I've spent, but some you may need funding, and so it's good to ask if it's out there. Or if you're doing it after school, you may get paid to do it after school. Then next, deciding on your platform. There's Teams, Google Classroom, Google Meet, Zoom. So figuring out what you're the most comfortable with and what the students have access to. And then just advertising and starting your group. And I know for me, it was just kind of like a just do it attitude, because at first I was really nervous and I didn't want to do it, because as counselors, we don't get that same training that the teachers do to run a classroom. And so I was really nervous, and would students like it? Would they want to do it? So I was really nervous, and I put it off for a few weeks. And then finally, I just put it out in the atmosphere. I think I told Liliana, our COSA, or someone else that, hey, I'm thinking about doing this. And that was my accountability, because I knew if I put it out in the atmosphere, out in the environment, that I would have to follow through. And it worked. People would start asking me, hey, when are you starting your club, or how's your club going? So it took a few weeks to get started and shake off the nerves. And but then once it started, it's been great. I get a little nervous each week, but overall it's going really well. So let me show you the student interest survey that we sent out. We sent a survey we send what's called a weekly Wellness Wednesday messages to our student. And that's another initiative in our district that was presented on yesterday during CounselorCon. But through our weekly wellness message, we sent out about getting involved, staying connected. And so we just asked a few questions. Would you like to participate in our club? That was one of the ones that was already going. A grief group, Fun and Games Club, Purple Pride. That's our LGBTQ club. A sports and exercise group. That one didn't have a lot of interest, and it's fizzled out. Anxiety support group, Impact 7-8, or Bible. And then if you could create your own club, what would it be? So those were the questions we asked the students, and they gave us a lot of good feedback. And that was it. And through those responses, that's how I got my initial club participants. I sent them an email. And so this is a good form, and it's linked in the presentation today. So you're welcome to make a copy and use this form as well. Let me go back to the other screen. That's my, hello. Here's my, I do this with my club all the time too, trying to figure out how to, okay, how do I minimize this up here so I can get back to my presentation? Any tips? This just shows you, you do not have to be a pro at Zoom or anything else to run a club. I do this all the time with my group. I'm having a hard time minimizing this. Oh, there we go. I just moved it. Silly me. All right, I'm back. Okay. And when we did the survey of what students wanted to see, these were some of the interests of our middle school students: art, video games, book club, theater, friendship, photography, robotics, chess, anime, K-pop. I noticed with my group, I think they thought it was going to be like a video game club because a lot of students came in with the interest of video games. So, and we have done some gaming type stuff. All right, any questions or anything to add so far, Sherry or Andrea, or any questions in the chat?
As far as the interest for the middle school, that's also a lot of the same interest for the high school students. So K-pop is huge right now with students, if you haven't heard of some of the groups. So students are really into anime and K-pop, and it's not just the middle school students, it's the high school students as well. So a lot of those interests obviously will transfer over when they're older as well.
Yeah, that's a good point. And I know on our club, when we met on Monday, the students said they want to do Pokemon, something with Pokemon. So we're Andrea and I are looking into activities Pokemon related for next week.
So we have a question in the chat. Monica asked, so you had she's asking, so you had advisors set up for all those clubs before the survey?
Yes, those were most of those clubs. Fun and Games, my club is brand new, but all the other clubs were already existing at our school prior to the pandemic. We have a pretty active school with some pretty active clubs. We had a Harry Potter club. I think we even had an anime club. They kind of come and go, but those are the ones that have continued through the pandemic where the teachers are still committed to meeting.
And at Hilltop Middle, we were a little bit more fly by the seat of your pants. I happened to be in one of our small learning community of teachers. They're our STEAM team, and they threw it out there. And I'll share in with my slide that I'm not the lead on my club. But so it was kind of the teachers thought, hey, I'll do, I'm into biking. I'll do a bike club. I'm not quite sure how that one's going since you can't get out there and bike, but it was more, he was going to do the mechanics of it. But we have a sports team, and then I'll share my Glam Squad with you, or our Glam Squad. We have a sign language club. So it was really organic. The teachers in that case kind of set it up based on things that they thought kids might be interested in, but that they were also interested in. So that's a little bit, like I said, we kind of flew by the seat of our pants on that one.
So my club that I started is Fun and Games Club. I just kind of thought about what would my own kids like to do, and that's kind of how I didn't come up with any creative name. And we meet virtually for 1 hour on Mondays after school, and it's mostly middle school students, but actually my own kids participate, and some of the club members have asked if their little brother or sister can join, and I really don't have an issue with it. It hasn't been an issue. It's one of those things that I'd rather ask for forgiveness than permission, and it hasn't been an issue. So we have different age groups, and my son, he's a senior, so it's been good for him because he kind of helps lead some of the breakout rooms, and he loves to play Among Us, so it's good socially for him too, because he's not very connected right now himself. We have anywhere from 20 to 40 students log in every week, so I'm pretty happy with that attendance. And a lot of students keep coming back week after week, and I get little notes from them saying, oh, thank you, I had fun this week, or sorry, I had to leave early, did I miss anything? So it's really, it feeds my own soul knowing that they enjoy it and I'm doing something positive. And a lot of the kids turn their camera on, surprisingly. I know the teachers always say that, oh, the kids don't turn their cameras on, that they do in the club. So that's been something positive. Students in my club can join anytime, so it's not like a support group where you have a structured curriculum. Students can come and go. I usually let them know ahead of time what we're playing, and they may not have an interest in that game and choose not to log in. I use Google Classroom and for the club, and so it's very easy to set up a Google Classroom. That's how I send the announcements. And I also use Google Meet as the platform for our virtual meetings, but I'm not that great at breakout rooms with Google Meet. So I'll switch it up, and sometimes we use Teams when we do breakout rooms, or we've even used Zoom. Zoom was great. It was my favorite, but most of this, we don't use Zoom in our district, so the students didn't really know how to log into Zoom. So, you know, knowing what the students, that was a learning experience for me. That I probably won't go back to Zoom. In our group, we usually start with an icebreaker, kind of like that camera on off that we did today. We play a game. So some of the games we played bingo. So you can see back here, I decorated for you guys. I just have an old-fashioned bingo with the bingo cards, but there is virtual bingo games online. And that's a fun one. We played that twice, and I send prizes to the students. So our ASB donated some, or we're the East Lake Middle Tritons, and so these are nice and flat. I can put them in the mail, and the kids love getting a little card. Thank you for joining the club, and you know, I'll put the stickers in there, and nothing big. I'm going to order on maybe some of those cards that Tara Brown showed us, the ones with little positive affirmations. I think I'm going to order those because some kids are winning more than once. But that's the extent of my budget for the mailings. But the kids like it. They really like getting those cards. And that's pretty. And usually I'll have a closure activity too. And so that's the extent. Like I said, we played bingo. Another really popular game is Among Us, and that's the one that we need to do breakout rooms because only 10 students can play at a time. So I put them into breakout rooms, and then usually most of the kids want to play Among Us, but there's a few who don't, or maybe they don't know how, or they just don't want to do it. And so like last week we did Kahoot with the students who didn't want to do Among Us, and so that was nice having Andrea as a partner so that we could each I was dealing with the technical part of breakout rooms, and she was doing the Kahoot, and the students did their own Among Us together. We've done Scribble.io. So those were some of the activities. Oh, a virtual scavenger hunt. So that's a little bit about my club. And now I'll turn it over to Sherry.
Mashim, there's one question from Zaida. I hope I pronounced your name correctly. I apologize if I didn't. Did you have to get a parent permission slip? She works at an elementary.
Not. I don't know if I was supposed to. I know if it was a support group where we were going into deeper topics, I would have gotten a permission slip, but for this I don't. And I can tell that a lot of the parents are in the background because I've seen them walking by. I had a parent who told me, he's like, oh, I peeked in because I wanted to see what you look like, which was a little awkward because I've talked to that parent on the phone about other concerns. And so, but no, I have not done a permission slip. Good question though. All right, Sherry, you want to take it away with the Glam Squad?
Yes, so I joined the Glam Squad. And like I had shared with you, it came kind of organically out of a discussion with a small learning community, our STEAM team, as to discussing kind of that disconnect students have. So the Glam Squad was actually, well, yes, Carla, but actually there's a caveat there, but yes. So Glam Squad was a program that was started in the San Isidro School District with my former school psychologist and one of our SPED teachers. And I have to say, Lily Esparza, one of our SPED teachers, and our former school psych won an award for their Glam Squad work with students years back. So when they were talking about it, both Lily and Martha, one of our other SPED teachers, said, we'll start the Glam Squad again. So they texted me and said, hey, do you want to join? So I thought this would be a really good idea because if you want to meet the least techie person in all of San Diego County, she's right here. So I thought this would be perfect. I could do what had been on my heart after talking with my kids, but also be a part. And I wasn't the lead, which I I found that kind of refreshing as well. And one of our SPED IAs joined. So although it's called the Glam Squad, I was kind of worried, and I said, this isn't only, aren't only going to have this for girls, are we? Because we really do need to be open. And that was one of the first things they made clear. So the Glam Squad is open to everybody. GLAM stands for growth, leadership, achievement, and motivation. So it's open to anybody. So we set it up, as I shared, with 2 teachers and an instructional student. All students are welcome, but it is based on girls in real life situations, but we've kind of manipulated it to work for any and all students. So, to be as inclusive as possible. So far, we have about 10 all-female students who've showed up. It's a very relaxed setting. We do have, our norms, but within that, we've made ourselves very open to them. We use our first name, which, is kind of unusual for me. And we're just very open with them, and just as human as possible. We sort of take off our teacher, IA, and counselor hat and just try and be there for the girls. So far, they worked on a vision board. We talked about masks that you wear, the masks you wear with your friends, the masks you wear with just, other students that you come in contact with, your family. So we're really talking about trying to empower these girls, look at who they are on the inside. So through this, I need to share that I am now looking into starting my own group, branching off on my own, a book club for my girls. I've noticed that a lot of the students, maybe it's by chance that have reached out to me, and we end up just chatting instead of me actually doing any sort of counseling session. A lot of them are using books as their way of coping during the time. And funny thing is, I have refound my love of books. So, so through this, I've come to find that I'm ready to branch out and do my own virtual group. All of our groups are all virtual because we are not on campus. But I'm just here to tell you, if you're not techie, it comes. I'm slowly learning as we go along. I actually sent out the reminder notice on Monday. I did it through Jupiter Grades. I didn't do it through Google Classroom, but they showed me how to do it. So don't be afraid. There's a lot of help out there. And I know as counselors, we aren't always trained in the same way as Mashim shared that teachers are, but we can get there, and we have a lot of staff willing to help, when they're able. So that's the Glam Squad for you.
I forgot I was so into it. I forgot I was in charge of the presentation. Take it away. And by the way, Andrea has been an awesome intern and comes with a lot of experience already.
Thank you. So this anxiety support group was actually done at the high school level. And even before pre-pandemic, we wanted to have our principal wanted to have a girls group, wanted to have a girls support group on campus. And they had been talking about it for a while, but no one had really taken the initiative to start it, which is understandable, right? Like we've all kind of talked about it. It is kind of scary to take the initiative, and also just to take something else on over all the other responsibilities that counselors have. That's a lot. But once we did go virtual, right, we went through distance learning, it was even more evident that our kids needed support, that we needed to provide that emotional support for our students. So I took that initiative, talked to our principal, and said, okay, how do we get this going for our students, especially right now during our distance learning? So the way we started was kind of the same thing as Mashim said, right? Reach out to everybody. So we reached out to our teachers and our counselors and asked them, what students do you see that need that extra support, who need that extra, have reached out. Some students have done check-ins already with their students, and they've noticed that some students have reached out. And then once we identified those students, we personally called those students, told them about the clubs, talked to the parents as well, since we were going to be dealing with a little bit more deep, right, more intense and deep topics. And once we got those students, we just started it. Our first group meeting was really just getting to know each other. So introductions and coming up with like group understand. I like calling them understandings, not rules. So they were just group understandings that as a group, we all agreed on. So we actually went around and I asked the girls themselves, so what do you want for, like, what are our understandings for this group? To really make sure that they're involved in everything in the group. It is their space. And that was one of the best ways to start establishing that trust, is to let them have control over what rules and understandings they were going to put on themselves and on each other. Then we had an icebreaker, and I had an initial form. Could you click on it, Machine? So on the group form.
Okay.
So at the first meeting, I did this group form, and it was very simple. Do you know what anxiety is? Do I know how to cope? Have I thought about my plans after high school, since most of our students were juniors? And what do I want to get out of group? And what kind of topics would I like to discuss in this group? And we actually incorporated those topics later on in our meetings to make sure that the group was really tailored to what our students needed. And my group meeting breakdowns, I'll just show you the sample presentation because it's way easier than going through it, just to explain it. But I always had a PowerPoint ready. PowerPoints were just the easiest thing since we were doing it through Zoom. And like I said, I always started my PowerPoints with group understandings and rules. So really have those students involved. It was a blank slide at first, and we went through it together, and I would write them down, and I would check every week with them. Are we still okay with these understandings? Do we agree? Do we need to change? Do we need to edit? To show them that, they have a say. Yes, they came up with these rules, but we can agree to change them. And then the next slide was introductions. Our other slides were usually feelings checks. So if our introduction was a icebreaker or a feelings check, and always making sure that we had that feelings check at the beginning and at the end, just to make sure that if we needed to, stay in a little longer to touch bases with one of our students, we gave ourselves that time. And since we were dealing with, topics like anxiety, depression, then later on with college planning and like post-high school planning, I always had an introductory like activity or video to really get the students to understand, okay, what is anxiety, like science-based, this is what it is. But then let's bring it home, right? Let's bring it to us. So in the next slide, thank you. So that one initially was blank. So it was just anxiety. To me, anxiety feels like, and what makes me anxious. And I wrote that slide with our students. So our students and I both all came together and we said, okay, so what does anxiety feel like to me? And each student shared what it felt like to them. And I also shared, so kind of like Sherry said, that you want to get, you want to be in this space, not as a teacher or not as a counselor, but really as a person that they can trust. And that means you being, opening up when it's appropriate and showing them that I also experience anxiety. And this is what anxiety feels like to me. And this really allowed the students to see that it's not just this bland, like broad things that can feel like anxiety. It was really specific to each student, that they could really identify what anxiety felt like to them. And they were really able to identify what situations specifically made them anxious. At the end, we always had resources. So in our next slide, some of the tools and resources that we used were apps like the Calm app. And we actually did some of those mindfulness and meditation activities together. Different mindfulness activities and breathing skills and coping skills, and actually practicing them with them, to not just give them, just say, these are the tools, but actually show them how to use them and actually practicing them. And then at the end, one of my favorite things to do with them was actually, we called it our feeling survival kit. And we would kind of touch base on it every week or so. And we would write down everything that were the things that we could do or say to make us feel better when we needed our feeling survival kit. And again, it was blank, and it was something that we did as a group to really show students that, okay, these are the specific things that work for me. I can try these things. I didn't want just a broad general statement like, these are all the things you can do to reduce anxiety, right? Because for some of us, exercise might work to reduce anxiety, but for some of us, exercise is just stressful and it actually causes us more anxiety. So really being able to, for the students to identify, these are my things, and actually having them writing them down was one of the best tools, and really making it collaborative, like not just having the slides there done and like, I'm just going to present. It's really working on these slides together and really showing the students that we were in this together. We were working on this space together and on all these tools together. On the last day, actually, we did have a final form. And in that final form, I asked the students, again, basically the same questions from the first form, and then their takeaway. And I think we've all talked about it. One of their biggest takeaway was that they felt that this was just a space that they could come to and talk. And they were just glad to have a space where they could talk, even if it was, our meetings usually lasted for about an hour and a half, depending on how much our students wanted to stay in there and talk. I would really not really cut them off. But most of the time they just wanted to talk, tell us about their day, tell us how they felt and what went well.
Thank you, Andrea. Is there any questions in the chat before we finish up with the last few slides?
We just got a yay for Point Loma Nazarene.
Oh, yay. I went there too. a long time ago. I know Miss Dr. Taylor. I know she's still there. She was my advisor.
She's still there.
Yes, definitely. I've had several interns from Point Loma and other schools, and they do a really good job there. So just some final tips on a successful meeting, and then we're going to just brainstorm some activities. But I would say, like Andrea mentioned, making yourself available at the end of the meeting for students who want to talk individually. In my group, we don't get really into deep stuff, and that's something that I actually want to add another group that's more about deeper connections. But for now, this is a more lighthearted. So the questions they ask at the end are, what are the prizes for bingo? Those kind of questions, or what are we doing next week? But I always like to hang out and close the meeting at the very end, making sure we're the last ones to log off. If possible, recruit a partner. I think it helps so much. Someone else there, whether it's just so the students meet two different people, or with technology issues, it's helpful to have someone. Like today we have a moderator, which is very helpful, and just to come up with more ideas. I know myself, I feel like I'm really enjoying it, but I get a little nervous about getting some fresh ideas. So today I emailed the staff at my school, the entire staff, and said, hey guys, I have this club. Are any of you interested in being a guest game player for a week? And I know last week we had our ASB advisor jump on and he led a little activity. And I actually have already had 3 teachers reach out. So it's great. So now I feel like re-energized with some new ideas to keep going for the next few weeks. Our social communication, our teacher who works with our students with autism and high functioning Asperger's, she plays a lot of games with them in class so that they learn those social skills. And so she's volunteered. Our art teacher volunteered, so she's going to probably come do some kind of art lesson maybe. And one of our history teachers, she's not joining us, but she gave me a lead for a fun game that the students like to play. So reaching out, you'll get that support. Technology, if you're not comfortable, we practice with our team. So I know my own counseling team. We have a big team. We're 5 counselors, and so we bounce ideas off of each other. But the teachers are also really helpful for helping with any little technology issues. My principal's really good. She helped me with Breakout Rooms. So there's a lot of support out there for those technology needs if you're not as comfortable. And we also listed a few of the different types of websites out there that can be helpful, like Pear Deck, Kahoot, and then of course the virtual platforms. And then breakout rooms, I know my group is big. It's anywhere from 20 to 40 students. And so breakout rooms helps them to be in smaller groups where they can socialize more. I feel like when we're in the big group, I'm kind of taking the lead at most of the talking. And I will ask them questions, and they'll participate, but it's usually the same few students who participate when we're in the big group. But when we break out into smaller groups, they socialize more. So we do a little bit mix of both. I don't like the breakout rooms from a technology aspect. It makes me nervous, but I just push myself and say, we're going to do this. And it worked last week. We had 3 groups of Among Us and 1 group of Kahoot, and it worked out pretty well. And we practice breakout rooms with our ASB. We actually are doing breakout rooms for a registration that's coming up this coming month. And so we wanted to practice that. So our ASB students were really helpful in practicing breakout rooms with them. So finding a teacher or a class who doesn't mind you coming out and having your guinea pigs to practice. So those are some tips. Any other tips, Sherry or Andrea?
I just put in the chat, I'm stealing the idea with the ASB because I have to prepare for registration. So I'm using them, to learn my tech, but I would recommend that as well. If you have students or team members, if you're like myself, not feeling this whole tech thing, or it comes a little bit slower, yeah, enlist your team members, enlist your ASB. For those of you in elementary, if you're able to maybe, pull out a couple of your 6th graders who are probably, in my case, far more techie than I am, use them to kind of practice your skills on. And then it gives them that feeling, again, we're talking about this disconnect when they feel needed, when they feel like, hey, the teachers or the counselor is reaching out to me to help them. There's that connect, our kids need, and I know I'm preaching to the choir, our kids need so much right now to feel like they're still a part of something, like we all do. So I think, even though we think we're, reaching out to them, and it's benefiting us in many ways, I'm sure it's connecting them and benefiting them as well.
Yeah, for sure. And that was something when we did the breakout rooms, there's no adults in them. I'm sending these kids on their own. And so I always say, assign a leader, and that's the person who's going to be the host of the Among Us game. And they do, and there hasn't been an issue yet. I'm not naive to know that something can happen and I might have to intervene at some point, but so far they've been really good about it. And like I said, I have high school kids and elementary joining the middle school, and that was a little nervous, but so far it's gone really well. And I think most of these games are appropriate for all the different age levels. So now what we'd like to do is share activities, because I know that some of you may already be running groups and clubs, and I think this would be a good opportunity for us to share some of the activities so we're not recreating the wheel. So I don't know if anybody wants to turn on their microphone or just put them in the chat. And then just so you know, this presentation is linked on the Sketch app. We had to download the app, our presentations on Monday. So whatever I type in right now is not going to be, I'm going to see if I can get it added to the Sketch, but as of now, it will not include these activities. So if you find one that you like, you'll want to write it down or take a picture of the screen. So we did camera on and oops, let me go back. How do I do this? Hello.
So one of the other activities that we've done in our club, which our ASB director led, which was a lot of fun, was Guess Who. So the old school Guess Who game, right, where you pick a character. So he kind of turned it around and asked students to turn, those who were comfortable, to turn on their cameras. And then he picked a specific student, and the students had to guess who who that student was. The students, that's also a great way to kind of, do a quick face check, see who's there, how they're doing. And a lot of the students really liked it. They felt that they were actually getting to see other students, right, as they're trying to guess who it was.
Do we have any volunteers for any? I typed in some of the ones that I talked about already.
We have a whole bunch. Monica
Okay.
shared, you can play Pictionary over Zoom using the whiteboard feature.
Using Zoom whiteboard. Awesome. Thank you.
And then Carolyn gave us a whole bunch. So the weekly check-ins, the highs and lows. Scavenger hunt. Oh, my favorite. I'm so bad at this one. 2 truths and a lie. Everybody knows when I'm lying. 2 truths and a lie.
Also, another way of, because I think we're planning on playing that in an upcoming meeting is, I think they also call it 5-finger showdown.
Oh.
And all of these are ones that if you just Google them, you should get instructions on how to do them. But yeah, these are all great ones that can be done virtually.
Dawn gave us Jeopardy. I got to get back up to Caroline's. She had some more for us.
With Jeopardy, are the games, do you use is there a Jeopardy app, or is there something, do you know what is used?
Yeah, we actually we found a Jeopardy app online, and then you can go in and plug in your questions, and then you just screen share it.
Oh, that's good. I like that.
And we actually had, we used it last year. We actually had some of the kids make some of them for us so that they were owning it. It was fun. We had a good time.
There's also a Michelle shared this or that. I like that one.
I've heard of that one.
I
know someone, when I sent that email today to the teachers, one of the teachers mentioned Gim Kit. And she says the students really like that. It's, I think, like a trivia type game. And then another one that was shared with me that I haven't tried. I know my nephew loves this. It's a board game, but I guess you could play it virtually. It's called Catan. It's, I think, like a role play type of game. What are some other?
Victor shared categories.
Oh, categories.
One that I know is really popular with the elementary school kids is what changed. So you ask one student to share their screen and you like pin them or you spotlight them, and they show their background, they turn it off, and then they have to change one thing, and the rest of the class has to figure out what was that one thing that changed. And a lot of the students really love doing that.
Oh, that sounds like fun.
Kristen shared that she's doing a social group with Zoom etiquette. I like that a lot with K through 3 third graders, getting them comfortable with screen time, excuse me. Boys video game group tips and tricks. Rose and Thorn. What's Rose and Thorn, Kristen? So Rose and Thorn, if anybody, that sounds interesting to me. Sounds like
I do roses and onions with my family at dinner, and we got a high and a low of the day. So I think probably that's what it is.
That makes sense. It sounds like the title of a book. See, I told you I'm really into books. Coloring club with coloring books. Oh yeah, and then you can do it online. My daughter was sharing, she works for the IRC, but they were doing a group get together that you can also do, and maybe somebody has done it, where you do telephone, where you write some, oh, I know what it is. You tell a partner some crazy, sentence like the polar bear swam in my pool last night, and then they have to draw it, and then it moves on to somebody has to then interpret what you said. So it's kind of like the old fashioned telephone where you put a message in. Then there's something called Quizzes that's similar to Kahoots. Highs and low from Kristen. Gotcha, Kristen. I'm sorry. I told you I'm the tech person. Your comment was down there and I didn't catch it. Weather report. Gabby, what's weather report?
Well, I asked the students how their day is going. So if it's a sunny day, they're having a good day. And if it's cloudy with a chance of rain. Yeah, just for us to know what emotional state the students are in.
I like that.
An icebreaker.
I like that. I have all of these. Oh,
Yeah,
See, now I want to create more groups to work with the kids on. And then let's see. Oh, it's a restorative technique. Okay. With restorative circles, the highs and the lows. Yeah. I hope I didn't miss anybody. If I did, it was not intentional.
These are so helpful because I think I mentioned I'm really into my group. I'm enjoying it, but I think that's what gives me the most anxiety each week or nervousness. Is like, what am I going to do this week? But the time goes by really fast. We're scheduled for an hour, and we always go over because we're in the middle of a game. And so we did a holiday party. So the Monday before winter break, we did a drawing game where I had them draw a winter scene with a pine tree and a sled and I don't remember, snowflakes, but they were blindfolded. And so they had fun, and then they had to show their picture. And then we did the virtual scavenger hunt where they went around the house, find a scarf or find, and they came back. So that was fun. Yes, that was one of the more fun meetings with the virtual holiday party. But yeah, there's a lot online too. I saw one where you could do a bonfire-ish where you could tell bonfire stories, and if it's safe, a little tea light candle with a
Marshmallow.
with a marshmallow on a what do you call those, toothpicks, and you roast a little marshmallows. Just little really silly things to keep them connected. And so is there anybody out there on the meeting who wants to share something that they're doing that maybe we haven't talked about, or any ideas? All right, well, and then the last thing would be questions and answers. And we just want to leave with one last quick activity at the end, since we are the last presentation of the day. I am going to go stop sharing my screen. And any questions and answers before we move on to the last activity? All right, so the last activity, we call it a waterfall. And then I want to make sure you stay on till the end, because I know our host will probably put the evaluation in the chat as well. So the last activity, we call it a waterfall. It's kind of a nice way to end a meeting on a positive note. I want you to think about something that you learned, and don't type yet. I want you to think about maybe something that you learned that's going to reboot your practice and that you could take back to your sites, whatever your role is. Something that you've learned over the last 2 days. I know mine. I made some posters. I put that were the chief emotional officers and that were world-class dopamine slingers. Those are things that stuck with me. But on the count of 3, I'd like you to put something in the chat that is going to reboot your practice, or just something that stuck with you. So 1, 2, 3. Awesome. Connection matters. Compassion, fresh ideas, take time to play more. Doesn't really matter the title of groups. Kids just need a place to connect. You can read a book if you are running from a lion. I like that. Yeah, awesome. Well, I hope you all learned something, not only in our presentation, but over the last 2 days, and that you enjoyed connecting with professionals from across the state of California. I think there's people from all over here. And Rich, I'm going to turn it back to you.
Great. So thanks, everyone. I appreciate the energy as we wrap up today. And I apologize for my coworker over there making that noise. So if you can hear that, I apologize. But the energy you brought today was fantastic. And as well as all the participants who shared some additional ideas as well today. And there'll be some takeaways for you. I did place the survey into the chat. And also this recording will be available, I want to say, within the next few days. I know Tanya is working on that from our side. So with that said, thank you very much. And I think the Sweetwater team may be sticking around for a minute or two to answer any other questions if those want to stay on board. So thanks so much.
Thank you, everybody.
Have a great
Thank you.
counselors week.
Woohoo, go counselors.
Thank you, Sherry, Maxime.
Thank you.
Great job.
Good to see so many friendly faces. And even
Shreem.
and a former intern even, so that's pretty awesome.
Good job, Machine. Good job, everybody.
Thanks, Adrian. That's cool.
I get to see what one of my coworkers from when we were at Mar Vista together, Miss Rame, as
Hi,
well as
Rich.
my former student, Miss Silva. Miss Silva was here earlier, Dr. Silva, who was my student at Sweetwater way back when, which is kind of funny. It's
You're
great.
well known.
No, I don't know about that. I'm just old.
Hey, I just missed teaching Mr. Hughes by a couple of years. My
Oh,
husband,
did you?
my husband did. So
It's
Yeah.
great. It's great.
I don't know. Is that great?
I think so. I think so. I'm sure it brings. I know it brings a smile to my face when I get to see my
It does,
folks.
doesn't it?
Yeah,
It's fun.
absolutely, absolutely.
We still have a few people on. Is there any questions? No, awesome. That's good to see.